when we do energy healings together in the workshop, in the webinars, I'm telling you what I'm experiencing, how it looks from my perspective. So we're kind of traveling together on this path. And I remember as a little child having fairly clear memories of previous deaths in previous incarnations, especially the more traumatic ones tended to stick with me. I feel that one of the reasons that we all carry some fear of death is because we've had deaths that were very unpleasant. Not all deaths are horrible, and not all births are horrible. They're dynamic, and there's a lot of transformation that occurs, but I do feel that there are remnants, impressions, and memory patterns that we all carry in the field of consciousness from deaths in the past that were difficult deaths, that were, traumatic deaths. So what we're really clearing here is not so much the fear of death itself. Oh, and my husband reminded me a lovely quote from Maharishi. I'm not sure this is a word for word, but something to the effect of if we really knew what it was like in the spirit world, we would do the opposite of what we do on earth, which is on earth we grieve and mourn when somebody dies, and we rejoice when somebody is born. And I think the quote was something to the idea of it, of his statement was that if we really knew how lovely it is to be soaking and seeping in the light of heaven, we would do it the opposite. We would rejoice when people pass on, and we would cry and mourn when they are born. So the actual transition from this world that is very, very limited and bound by the nature of living in the constraints of a human nervous system, basically, is released. And all the karma with that is released, most of it at the time of birth. And of course, if it's a traumatic birth, at the time of death. And if it's a traumatic death, a lot more karma is released. And sometimes people will choose. You choose, your soul chose. Now, this is where we go into the healing part, is that our awareness goes back and it locates through time those deaths, I guess births too, we could include them, but those deaths that were so traumatic that they left impressions, they left memory patterns, and they left scars, energetic scars on the field of consciousness regarding the transition out of the physical body. One of the things I'm noticing is how difficult it is to let go of certain attachments to the physical body and to being in the physical body. Our bodies are these incredible, amazing, beautiful, precious gift of the Creator. It's such a precious gift. So it's like having like a precious diamond or something and then having to give it up, So there's also that even in the non-traumatic births, there's that, is the having to give up the connection to the body, to the physical body, which is precious because it is a fractal expression. It is like a little crystalline expression of the Creator. It contains all the important parts in all the important places that reflect the divine intention and intelligence that's behind this whole creation. And so our bodies are a great gift. It's a very precious time. It's a very precious time. Anyway, awareness goes back. And this is our individual awareness, but it's also carried on the wings of our relationship or connection to the divine Creator, to the wholeness of ourself, the source of ourself. The source of ourself knows, your source self knows all of your past incarnations. That's the part that we draw upon. It's the wisdom and intelligence of our relationship to the source of creation. It draws upon your wisdom, your knowledge of past incarnations. We go back and we check in with ourselves in the past and our deaths in the past. And one of the things we check in on is how attached the soul was at the time of death to the body. How much of a fight, how much of a fight we put up. Sometimes people put up more of a fight than others, right? Sometimes we did. And when the transition is inevitable, it's also more graceful and easy and gentle if we lean into the transition process and let go. And you've heard me talk many times about Dharma. Dharma has these four aspects of truth and love and purity and tapas, which is the ability to really know when to let go and when not to let go. And at the time of death, like that's definitely the time to let go. That's the time to let go of those attachments and realize that it's been a beautiful ride. It's been a beautiful vessel. It's been a precious vessel. But now it's time to release from that vessel. So very, very gently, very, I would say tenderly, the divine in all of us goes back to those moments when we were putting up a fight for the transition and just coming in and saying, it's okay. It's okay. This is the time that it's appropriate to let go. This is the time to allow the transition to happen nicely. And I'm definitely seeing the sweetness of the divine presence within each of us, speaking the universal language of feeling directly to the heart of our previous incarnations at the moment that we realize we just need to let go. And supporting that, supporting and helping ourselves realize that the attachments aren't serving. And it's interesting that attachments are attachments, you know. In a lifetime where there are a lot of attachments to the physiology, there usually in those lifetimes also a lot of attachments to other things too, right? Relationships and status and belongings and stuff. Like I'm looking through the field of our collective and I'm seeing deaths where people organized their belongings in such a way that even after they've passed out of their body, that their inheritance, they're attempting to control where the inheritance goes and how it unfolds and things like that, things, attachments, all kinds of attachments. So all the attachments are now illuminated in the light of the perspective of the divine, that they are connected to the relative field of creation. They have nothing to do with our individual relationship with God. They have only to do with our relationship with the relative field of creation. And as such, they have no place in the transition. They have no place in the transition. The light of your awareness comes into the heart, and it's very, very soft. And I think that the fear and the difficulty of the death transition also comes from those transitions or those deaths when one carried a heavier than usual weight into the field of the spirit, into the spirit world, when there were a lot of lessons still undone. There were a lot of unresolved issues, incompletions lit up, incompletions lit up, because death is a completion. Yes. So we bring those times that people bring their incompletions to the completion of death. And incompletions and completions are like oil and water, right? There is a softness and there is a beauty and there is a presence. Death has a presence. Death has a presence. And so at this point in the healing, there's an honoring of the presence of death, honoring of the, we could say, the collective laws of nature that are responsible for orchestrating the transition out of the physical body. And here in the heart, there is an honoring of that, an honoring of those laws of nature, the collective of those laws of nature. And I would say the lively soul presence of the collective of those laws of nature. Again, Vedic science has its terms and so forth. But what we're doing now is we are honoring that, holding a space of honor in our world, because we each in this lifetime meet our end. But until that moment comes, we'll see other ends as well. So we're honoring all the ends, all the endings. And that doesn't always mean just the physical body, right? When a relationship ends, that hurts too. And a person can grieve during that process of losing a relationship. Even losing a job. I know we've all been through a lot the last couple of years, last few years, right? There's been a lot of letting go and a lot of losses. People have lost jobs, they've lost loved ones. It's been a very difficult time. So ease with that process partly comes from placing our relationship with that aspect of creation that's responsible for those losses, those big losses, in its proper, honorable position. It's a point where we all realize as human beings that there are forms of this creation that are bigger than us. And it's best to position oneself respectfully, appropriately. And one of the things we're doing at this moment is we're softening our own transition. So just as in energy healing, we can send our awareness back through time to help smooth our own past death transitions. We can also apply our awareness forward in time to our own transition in this lifetime, in this body, with a kind of offering and just a sort of honoring and a placement now, practicing now, taking a position of respect and appropriateness, and in a sense, requesting through our connection to wholeness, to the source of creation, that we develop and cultivate those habits and behaviors that are most appropriate and most we develop the resources now that allow us to meet that experience when it comes effortlessly, gracefully, beautifully, right? Like if there's some karma, if you're holding some karma in your body now that is going to that is threatening to structure a difficult or traumatic transition for you in this lifetime, then right now we can look at that and gently put our attention on, well, what would be the important lessons that I need to learn now so that when that time comes, it's smoother, it's more graceful, it's more gentle, it's more appropriate. Yeah. What would be the action now that would mitigate the trauma as much as possible? And as I put my attention on that question, very important question, the answer that comes up is really, really simple. We cultivate our relationship with the Creator first. And that relationship is cultivated through humility. And as a friend mentioned today, gratitude. Gratitude is good too, but humility is the long-standing technology. It's a long-standing tool for balancing that relationship. And practically speaking, experientially speaking, Humility is, it's not just going through and having embarrassing experiences. That's silly. Humility is when the mind is fully silent and the heart is fully expanded in the love of the divine. That's a condition. That's a state of being. That's a state of being that opens the door for the divine presence, your divine presence, to align perfectly with the presence of God. It's a state of being that is without judgments, assumptions, expectations, agendas, etc. It is simple. It is a very simple state. And it's a very easy state to experience when we're just sitting quietly in meditation or falling asleep at night. It's a lovely time to have that experience. It's harder when we're facing something difficult. It's harder when we're engaged in dynamic activity. It's harder when we're distracted by responsibilities and pressures of this world. But it is the state of functioning that gives rise to the highest and best possible results. It is a state where the body is healing. The body is adapting continuously to accommodate the presence of the divine here. It's shifting. The body shifts to accommodate the presence of the divine when the mind is silent and the heart is full. And so what happens in our life is that experiences arise to bring us into that state of grace, that state of, we could call it humility, we could call it state of grace too, I think, because it's very, very sweet. I'm thinking through my definitions of words. Better stick with humility. Anyway, that allows the body, which is the slowest to change, right? Consciousness changes fast, but the body takes its time. The body has to go gradually because neural connections are created and then they kind of melt away and then new ones are created and then they melt away. It's like there's that kind of dyeing the cloth principle that's always going on with the nervous system, you know, that we put ourselves in a situation where we're exposed to a particular type of experience and the nervous system accommodates. But then when we're in some other experience, the nervous system kind of accommodates that other experience. But if you put yourself in a particular experience again and again over the course of time, as a musician, I know this very well, because if I spend a certain amount of time every day, an hour to 2 hours to 3 hours, 3 is my favorite, although I rarely get that opportunity. But, you know, if I put myself with the instrument every day, what happens is the neural connections that are made don't forget yesterday's connections, right? The connections from yesterday are re-enlivened with today's connections, and then they're made thicker as well. And the same goes for this experience of the infinite silence of the mind and the infinite fullness of the heart as the experience that allows divinity to move directly into the body and restructure the body. It's like a hack. It's like a life hack for transforming the nervous system optimally to accommodate the relationship with the divine in such a way that as an individual, we have access to the resources of divinity. We have access to those resources of our full potential, our pure potential. So you can just for a few seconds or for hours, you can spend the night in that place. It builds up in the body. The body goes into a state of healing transformation that is optimized. And the body and the nervous system and the thinking and the emotions and all the scaffolding that goes along with the relationship between the pure life force rising from the source of creation and embodying in the physical form, all the scaffolding in between also changes and accommodates. And the nervous system's so flexible and pliable that one doesn't lose the ability to function in this world and to make decisions and work at your job and cook. Lol, I cooked a meal right before for somebody in the family right before this meeting. Yeah, one still is functional, even though the mind is silent and the heart is full. It is possible. And even in difficult situations, even when we're facing down an abuser or suffering in some way, that is still there. The silence is still there. The heart is still full. And all the resources needed to navigate through that difficult experience are right up on the surface where you have access to them and can move through the experience in a graceful manner. And that's where the grace comes in. That's where the grace and mercy come in. Because the grace and mercy come from the divine. And they are the gifts of the spirit. You could say they're the gifts of that presence. The presence, oh yeah, I had this aha moment and I realized that presence is the presence. It is the Holy Spirit. It is the spirit of the divine that brings the gifts. It's a beautiful question. So fear of death is mitigated by intentionally choosing to put the relationship with the divine first and foremost, even now that we're all busy and engaged in this world, the world of man and the world of work and the world of social structures and family and all the various responsibilities. We still put that relationship first. And by putting that relationship first now and going forward and bringing and intentionally stabilizing that state where that relationship is optimized, then what happens is naturally, spontaneously, we draw forth the karma that needs to be addressed now when we're in the body and we have lots of resources to deal with it. We deal with it now so that when it comes time to pass out of this body, we don't have any kind of big, scary, nasty karma that we have to deal with at that moment. May it be for all of us, you guys. May it be for all of us. May we all be blessed to pass out of this world in a graceful, delicate, beautiful, light-filled, love-filled manner. I have such a sweet, lovely client who witnessed his partner's passing. He's from Europe, so if he joins, he'll join us tomorrow. But he witnessed his partner's passing, and it was such a beautiful passing. It was very quick, and it was very intensely filled with the love of the mother of creation. It's beautiful. Like death can be like that. Great question. Thank you. How can we best prepare for leaving our body? Oh, I answered that one. That's the next question. How can we best prepare? I would say that would be it. Yes. To stay close because, anyway, the relationship with the divine, that's a big one. That's bigger than all of our other relationships. Yeah.